A last-ditch attempt to find some autumn colours lingering on before winter takes hold, and the woods didn't disappoint. Two very different photographs, each showing a bit of warmth and light hanging on. Good morning everybody, welcome back. In my last video I kind of mentioned how this year I'd kind of been a little bit disappointed by the autumn weather conditions. Sorry, not the weather conditions so much, the actual fall of the trees and the colour, and that in the part of Devon in which I live I don't seem to have had much luck with those colours. But a number of you commented that actually you'd found quite the opposite, that the colours that we'd actually had were really quite good. One of you was actually down from this part of the country, and I guess on reflection, thinking about it, when I've been driving about, I have seen pockets of colour which have been really quite good. So I thought, well, although we're well into November now and most of the trees have dropped their leaves, I thought maybe there's just a few pockets of resistance still around and some photographs that I can take and things which I can look at. So I've come back again to a local woodland where I've been a number of times this year, and it's quite close to home. I really enjoy coming down here. So I thought, why not come down, give it one last chance and see if there's something which I can get a grip on and have a look and see if we can find some more colours. If nothing else, we're going to find that there's a fantastic carpet of rich red-brown leaves that we can use in some of our photographs, and maybe we'll find some sort of like skeletal sort of shapes in the in the trees, and maybe we can use that. And there's a river running by as well. Whoops, a bit slippery. There's a river running by, and who knows, maybe we'll get a bit of slow shutter work or something done along there as well, which I really enjoy doing. So time to crack on and see what we can find to shoot. Well, I found my first photograph, and to be honest, it's been a bit of a not a long trek, but it's just been a little bit difficult to actually find it. And now that I'm here, I'm really pleased, because I've walked past this spot a number of different times during the year, and each time I've come across it, I've known that there's been a real potential here to take some really good images, but I've never really actually stopped and looked through the viewfinder and seen what's possible. And I think because when the seasons change and lighting conditions change and the direction of the sun changes and things, it opens up lots of different possibilities for taking new images. Now you can probably see behind me that it's actually really quite bright, but that's what's making this image possible today, because in the foreground down, if I tip the camera down, you can see that all around me where the camera is, it's a little bit darker, and there's a reflection down on the water, that sort of like highlight leading you down into this brightness. And that's what the image is about. That's what sort of captured my eye and what I wanted to share with you. It's that stream of light sort of taking you down into this bright area beyond. So I've tried to frame the image up with some darker sort of trees and the banks along the stream to the left and to the right. And there's a canopy of trees, a dark branch over the top, which I've also, sorry, Ruby's distracted by something. And there's a canopy over the top of the trees, which is also quite interesting, and it sort of holds your eye in. I've got to be a little bit careful, because if I go a bit too high, I'm going to take some of that bright sky into the scene. And if anything draws your eye to the edges of the frame, if there's any bright areas that attract your eye out away from the main picture that I'm trying to produce, it will destroy the effect. But I've got a lot of hope for this image. I'm really quite excited about taking it. So I'm going to set up the composition and see how we get on. So I've actually set the camera up with the polarizing filter on, because it's that polarizing filter that just takes some of the reflection out. And I don't want to destroy all of it, because like I said, it's all about the that that highlight sort of taking your eye through the picture. But what I do want to do is I want enough highlight taken out so that it doesn't overpower the image and I can control the exposure. Now I'll put up on the screen the video that I'm shooting through the 5D as I'm setting up my composition, so you can just see what it is I'm looking at. So you see in the picture at the moment that there's some rocks down in the centre of the frame, and those rocks are really sort of my foreground anchor point, and it's something to start your journey through the picture. Now you can see that there's a number of trees to the left and to the right of the picture, and these, albeit really good, are a little bit too dominant. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit and crop those out. And I don't want so much of the bank, and I don't know if you can see it on the screen, but you certainly don't want Ruby in there either. So I've decided to zoom in to about this sort of position, and I've left some of the trees on the back, on the sides there. But you know, even in post-processing, I may even take those out a little bit more and just get rid of them completely. But what I do want to have at the top is just this dark bit of tree at the top, because it's important that I have that so that it frames the centre of the image. Hopefully now you can see the effect that I'm looking for and what I'm trying to capture. So all I need to do is take this final image, put it back into camera mode, back into live view, focus on that rock, 2-second timer, there we go, take the picture. I'm going to put the final frame up for you now so you can see I've actually done it. I may even take a number of bracketed exposures, and the reason I'm going to do that is because to get the texture in the water that I want, I may need to do an exposure blend. But if I do that, I'll tell you. So, find our next composition. Take this one. Really pleased with what I've got so far. I'm very pleased with this photograph. I knew it had potential when I first saw it. The way I was attracted to the brightly lit autumnal trees in the distance. The way the river led me out of the gloom under the trees onto the light beyond. Well, I found my next composition. When I was walking through the woods earlier today, there were quite a few reflections and puddles that looked really quite entertaining, really quite good, but it just wasn't coming together. And it's funny how things turn out, because as I was walking back along the track from the previous picture that you've just seen, I thought that actually, because the sun was coming up, once again, you know, it's sort of bright blue skies, and on the opposite side of the hillside it's now really, really brightly lit. I thought things were going to get too contrasty for me and just sort of become a little bit difficult photographic wise. Not that I couldn't find any more pictures to take, just that it wasn't really suiting the location that I was in and the type of frame of mind in the images that I wanted to take. So I was thinking I'd have to change my mind a little bit and try and find some different images. But previously I couldn't find a way of getting all these reflections that I found to come together, and I couldn't really find the way to photograph them. I couldn't make sense of the confusion of the leaves and everything floating on them, and everything looked a bit flat and a bit boring. But come and have a look at this. So hopefully you can just see over my shoulder where this pool is really quite brightly lit now with the reflection of the light from the hillside behind it. And there's a few dark trees and a few branches and things around there, so I'm hoping that I can use those as elements to frame the image. This sort of picture is always quite difficult to compose because it's so haphazard, it's so unordered and difficult, and that's one of the things with woodland photography, is it's that anyway. And I think that's one of the things I like about it. It's that challenge of where you have to try and make sense out of the confusion that you're seeing before you. So let's see how we get on. There's got to be a composition somewhere. Oh, I'll tell you what, finding that composition was not easy at all. Left a bit, up a bit, right a bit, down a bit. I've moved the camera literally all over the place before I could actually find the right position. And I'm even not now 100% sure if I've got it exactly how I want it. Let's spin you around so you can see what I'm looking at. So what I've been trying to do, I've been trying to get this tree here to frame the top of the image with the bank at the bottom and the bank on the far side as well, and hopefully that's what's going to create the frame for the image. Now I thought I was going to be producing a square picture, but I'm not quite so sure now. I thought a nice square in the centre of a frame would look really, really good, but I'm not quite certain. It might actually work out now that I end up doing this as more of a portrait style picture, because the reflection bleeds off to the left. The trouble is, it then means that I've got quite a dark frame on the right hand side, and the other side of the frame is going to be a little bit open, so I'm not quite sure that's going to work out, but I've done the best that I can. Like I said, one of the problems with woodland photography is finding those sweet spots, finding that sort of point where everything comes into some sort of harmony, and this has really been difficult. Exposure wise, all I've done is I've concentrated on the reflection itself, because that's the most important part of the image, and there's quite a contrast range, certainly for my camera to handle. So I've got highlights there in the reflections which were going to be overexposed, or I've got some dark shadows as well on the tree bark and the bank, but I think that's going to be fine. I think in post-processing, the way that I'm thinking about the image at the moment, I'm going to introduce a little bit of blue into those shadows and just boost the saturation on the yellows and the oranges and the reds a little bit, just to give it that sort of extra autumnal boost to the colours, which I think I'm looking for in this image. So I'm really quite excited about processing it and seeing how it works out. The other thing I've done as well is that although the picture is all about the reflection, I think if I have any out of focus tree on the left hand side, I think it's going to look really quite difficult. And as I'm shooting at 105mm to get rid of any of the distractions around the outside of the picture, I've actually decided that the best thing for me to do is to focus stack in this situation. Because when I took the images, I zoomed into them at about 100% on the viewfinder in playback, and you could see that the tree itself wasn't sharp. So I've shot at f11 and I've taken a few focus brackets as well. I haven't done one for the background because I'm quite happy for the background to go blurred in this case. Everything's about the foreground, so I haven't bothered with that at all. So it's time for me to pack up and crack on and see if we can take one last picture before we call it a day, because there is something which I noticed on the way down. I'm hoping the lighting hasn't changed too much and it's still going to give me the image that I'm looking for. So let's get that done. I was looking for autumnal colours, the last throes of oranges and reds before we descended into the dark and barren months of winter. I didn't expect to find them in the reflected colours in a puddle, but that's exactly what I found, the fallen leaves and golden light of dawn. Well, that's all for this week, folks. I'm pleased with the results of this week's autumnal shoot. I came away with 2 photographs that achieved what I set out to do. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. Until next time, get out and enjoy your photography.